Hi, this is Mea.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life Podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
Mea and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up,
so you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. And today we're going to be talking about procrastination specifically, and our author starts and restarts, and the things that we thought we were doing right, but really not. But before we get into procrastination, let's talk about our creative weeks. What's got going on, Joy?
Okay, so this past week, my son is a little writer as well, and so he's been asking me for a while to edit his stories for him. This past week, I said, all right, we are going to sit down and we're going to work on one of your stories together. It was so much fun because I learned a lot just by working with him, and so it was a super fun night.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that so much. The main creative thing in my week, too, also revolved around my kids, which is kind of interesting. And my oldest kid is Clay. And so Clay came in, and I was sitting on the couch, and he was like, Mom, I know how to make spider webs. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. He's like, Peter Parker in that new Spider-Man movie, he just got eggs and water, and he put it together in a bowl, and I got a fork, and he stirred it around, and then we picked up the fork, it had spider webs on it. And I was like, that is not how you make spider webs. But I said it in my head. I didn't say it out loud. So I thought, what harm is it if we just get some eggs out and we get some water and put it in a bowl and spin it around, and he can see for himself that there are no spider webs. So we did that. We did it, and he was a little disappointed. But then we started kind of getting into the whole idea of experiment. So without him knowing it, I was helping him create hypotheses and then methods, and he got gathering results and then analyzing the results and stuff. So when he finally realized that we were not going to be able to get spider webs, he wasn't really as down as I expected him to be, because he was having a lot of fun, I guess, with the experiment. But I asked him when it was all over with, he was like, did you have a good time? And he was like, yeah, I had a good time. I was like, did you learn anything? And he stopped and he thought for a minute, and he was like, yeah, I learned that things don't always turn out the way that you think that they're going to turn out.
Oh, I love that.
So that was it. I also wrote an essay about that because I have this creative nonfiction thing going on that I'm working on, and and I also brainstormed a trilogy with a writer friend of mine this week, and it's going to be great. You're going to love it, Joy. It's going to be fabulous.
Wonderful.
So that's my creative week.
Oh, that sounds like a great week to me.
Well, let's go ahead and get into the topic of procrastination. Leading up to that, though, let's talk about how you started your author journey and your background and how you started pursuing that. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So it really starts when I was a kid. I mean, you know how people, when you're a little kid, one of their favorite questions to ask you is either, do you have a boyfriend? Or what are you going to be when you grow up? And so I usually hated those questions. But the one about when you grow up, that one I kind of liked. So I would either say artist or author. Those were two of my earliest answers to that question. So then as I grew up, I started to get some reality kicking in. I realized, authors really don't make any money. So that's probably not a good idea. So I set it to the side and kind of, didn't think much more. And then, but I'd love to write, always loved to write. And so when I was in high school, I got to thinking about college, what I wanted to study, what I might want to do with my life. And I really thought that I wanted to write for newspapers. And so my dad helped me get a summer job at our local weekly newspaper. And it was the perfect opportunity to find out if this was really what I wanted to do or not. That's when I knew that, I wanted to go into journalism. And so when I went to college, that's where I everything took me. So after that, it wasn't until 2010 was when I really started to pursue the author thing. And I thought that, I was all about it at that point, but it turns out I wasn't really as ready as I thought. But at that point I wrote a couple of picture books. I started on a memoir because somewhere in one of the craft books that I read, there was something about starting by writing your memoirs. I wrote a short story that I submitted and got rejected. So yay for rejections. And then I even had a great author friend who was willing to look at one of my picture books and give me some feedback. And I was very appreciative of that, that she would take the time to do that. But after that, I just stopped because I wasn't ready, which I understand now. But at the time it was like, well, I don't know. I just wasn't really sure why. So in 2016 was when I started it back up again, and I was like, this is it. And I'm ready now, and let's do this. So our stories are actually sort of similar, and we used our love of writing in what we ended up doing before we came to our senses.
Yeah, it's true. I was a speech communication major in college, but before then, in high school, I wrote a lot of poetry and a lot of emo poetry. It was pretty rough. In middle school, I wrote too, but it wasn't until high school that I was like, this could be a thing. Like this writing could be a thing. It was kind of exciting. And so one of my poems, my high school English teacher submitted to a journal that published high school kids' works. Mine got accepted. It got accepted, and she came to me and she told me that it had happened, and then here's all the paperwork. And I took it home, and my mother, who has always tried to do right by us, told me that like this is not a real win, basically. Like that they the journal publishes everybody who gets in there, so hopefully everybody's parents will buy the book and they end up making money that way. And so we didn't buy the book, and I kind of was really hurt by that. And so I just kind of put it off to the side and didn't do anything else. I didn't consider writing as a viable career anymore. And when I went to college, I went into speech communication, and I actually was on the newspaper with Joy for a little while. I was a co-editor of a lifestyle section. So in 2009, 2010, I was in an unhealthy work situation, and I rediscovered the love of writing fiction. And I started trying to write again. What I did find in that was solace in writing, and I also rediscovered the passion that I had. It was everything that I was looking for while I was in college, and I have it now. And, we do it a little bit differently when we're adults and we have families and bills and things than we would have done when we were young and with little responsibility. So that's kind of where I came from. And I can tell you that much of the years between 2010 and 2016 were spent procrastinating.
Yes.
Did you see what I did there? Brought it all the way back to our topic. And procrastination actually didn't have a title to it until we were already fed up with it, and we thought we were doing the right things. But without a particular action, i.e. writing, the things that we were doing just turned out to be time wasters. So what were some of the things that you did and that you thought were right but weren't?
Well, I remember, when I first decided, okay, I'm going to be an author, I sat down and I went to the library. I got the, what is the name of that book?
It's like the Reader's Digest Market.
Writer's Market. There we go.
Writer's Market.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
It's been a few years since I've looked at that, obviously.
Me too.
Which you'll see why is a good thing.
Yes.
Anyway, so at the time, I didn't even have a manuscript. I didn't have anything. So I'm sitting there and I'm writing down, oh, yes, this is my dream publisher. And, I'm writing all this stuff. And I spent hours, I filled up pages and pages and pages, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But
Preach.
not really.
Why was it wrong?
Because I wasn't to that point yet. I wasn't ready. I didn't even have a manuscript to even consider sending off to a publisher. I had no idea.
I looked at like agents, like people that I wanted, agents of my favorite authors. I like looked all of them up and tried to figure out how I could write a story that would fall into their needs, like their guideline needs and that sort of thing. Of course, by the time that I wrote it, they would need something different. So yeah, I'm with you. I researched a ton of that stuff, and then like blog articles from different authors that I admired. I read all of those, all of them. Did you take any courses?
I don't think so. I mostly just read books. Let's see. So that would have been, because my original start was around 2010, 2011. And I really didn't do a whole lot of that at that point. I did read a bunch of books, every book that I could find that my library had on being a writer, being an author. And then, yeah, I think that was pretty much it. And then I did do a lot of daydreaming as well, which I know we're going to talk about too, because that's another thing. But yeah.
On the research side of it and the craft side of it, before we get to daydreaming, I also was a perpetual webinar taker. So, I mean, I would get through with a webinar and be looking for the next one. Like, I don't know if I was looking for an easy button or if I was just trying to like just soak up all of the knowledge and stuff. Like all of a sudden I was going to be able to write beautifully and, write that New York Times best-selling story just by knowing all of the things. I was researching the crap out of things.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it's like an easy button, because you see all these things and you think, well, they have the secret. They have the, whatever that little nugget of truth or whatever that thing is that I'm missing, like it's going to be in this one. And it almost becomes like, how with eBay, it can be very addictive.
Girl.
Or anything like that. Like, it's oh, well, the next one or one more bid or, So yeah, I think you're definitely right on that.
I was just looking for the thing that was going to make everything clear, because how to write a book and how to be an author was so jumbled up in my mind. And instead of making it clear, it just added more clutter to the mess. And I just left it there. Instead of trying to piece it out. So what do you do with a messy room, right? You don't just keep adding things to the room. That's not going to make it clean. That's not going to make it organized or understandable. It's taking each of those pieces of, the clutter and taking one item at a time, looking at it, deciding if it is valuable or not. And if it's not valuable, you throw that away, But when I didn't evaluate the information that I was putting into my brain, and especially when I didn't practice the trick of the trade that they were trying to tell me, and then all of that stuff just stayed in my brain room. It just stayed there and just got messier and messier. So if you do have a problem with procrastination, I do encourage you to take a moment, take a break, actually. Like just take a hiatus from reading blog articles, from doing the courses and doing all the webinars and researching all the things, and just evaluating the information that you have in your brain, because I think that you probably have a lot of good stuff in there that could really help you. But if you're not practicing it and trying to put those skills in place, then it's just going to stay a big jumbled mess in your brain.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. And, when you know that you're going to, for example, maybe there's a great writing conference that's coming to your area and you have the opportunity to go, okay, that's great. But you need to make sure that you're not only blocking off the time to attend it, but you're blocking off time afterward to take your notes, sit down, go through them and really process what you took in. Because when you do a webinar or even a course or a conference, whatever it is, it's a lot of information just being, dumped over you. There's no way to process it in the moment. So you have to have that time. And then, like you said, from there, you need to pick out the pieces that are going to be helpful to you and then practice them, because sometimes you're not going to know if they're going to be helpful until you actually do that step.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the difference between research as procrastination and research as a tool is the implementation of the information. But I think we have to place value on our time. Even when in the beginning, before we are published writers, we have to place a value on our time, and we have to place a value on ourselves. And we have to realize that writing is something that has to be done in order to get better. So those are some of the things. Now let's talk about daydreaming, because that's way more fun.
Oh, yes, exactly.
What did you daydream about? What was your favorite daydream? You can do it, Joy. Tell us.
Well, I'm trying to think of like a good example. I don't know. I mean, I plan the speeches in my head, and like all that kind of stuff, because I'm going to win the big award. Yeah, I think we definitely, like, that's part of it, is like you imagine that moment when you're going to get that book for the first time. You're going to unbox it and you're going to be holding it in your hands. And you sit there and you're thinking about it. You start to cry. See, you're going to start to cry, aren't you? I know you. Because I do the same thing.
And in my head, I'm like sitting in the middle of my living room floor and I'm holding it and I'm like rocking back and forth. And that song, 1,000 Years, is playing in my head. It's like, I've loved you for 1,000 years. So daydreaming, whenever you haven't written anything, isn't going to do you any good, friends. But whenever you finish that first draft, and we're not saying that you can't take time to like celebrate the milestones, but there has to be milestones in order to celebrate them, right?
Absolutely.
So after you get the first draft, then you can pick out your song that you're going to play when you unbox your first book. So don't be like me. Don't pick that out 3 years ago. Daydreaming is fun, but you got to put a cap on it and you got to move on into reality. What was it? Oh, there was a Harry Potter quote. Albus Dumbledore said, what is it? It does not do to dwell only
on dreams and forget to live. Yes.
That one.
Good. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Albus. Thank you, JK.
And it's fun. It's great. And the books are good. The webinars are good. The courses are good. All of this stuff is good. Mm-hmm. But they have to be harnessed. And the more that you kind of put yourself out there and see these things, the webinars pop up in your newsfeed or however it comes to you, the easier it will be for you to determine just by looking, okay, that's not actually going to be worth my time.
And only research the things that you need to know at the moment.
Absolutely. And as you come across those great articles, those great posts, that's what Pinterest is for.
that and also I have had a Word document where I will copy and paste the links.
Oh, that's a great idea.
In a Word document, just open it up, copy and paste, and then it's like I'm not so anxious that I'm going to lose this article and never find it again.
Right.
So,
and it would actually be beneficial to take maybe a minute to write a little snippet with that.
Yeah, but don't be like me and organize yourself to death. And there is our noise. So, guys, that sound, I just wanted to not talk over it for a moment, means that it is time for our QWERTY challenge. So, Joy, what's our QWERTY challenge for the day?
Okay, so our challenge for you this week is to assess yourself. And I know that that's not easy to do. It's a scary thing sometimes, but you can do it. We have total faith in you. So this week, what are some of the things that you're using as distractions? What is keeping you from writing the words? One of the things that you can do is you can sit down and figure out where is your time going. Even make a list, and maybe you already do this. Maybe you already have a list of what you need to get done in a day. But instead, keep up with where you're actually spending your time. In fact, jot down what you're doing. Jot down the time it takes even. And you might be surprised at where your time is going.
Joy told me this one time, so this is her piece of genius. She told me one time that whatever you're doing and the time that you block off for writing, whatever you're doing in that time instead of writing is actually procrastination.
I'm glad you remembered that because I'm so bad about remembering what I say half the time. So that was good. I'm going to write that down.
Well, it struck a nerve with me, girl. That was smart. Yeah, you need to write that down. And this is not a one-time thing, guys. This, you do it once right now. It doesn't mean that in a month that it's going to be the same thing that you're filling your time with. So, every once in a while, just take stock and just see if you're not writing or you don't feel great about the progress that you're making on your creative piece, even if it's not writing. It could be painting, it could be practicing an instrument, it could be anything. Whatever you're doing instead of doing that thing that you love, that is procrastination. So every once in a while, take stock.
But yeah, this is constant. This is something you're going to do a lot.
It's going to be great.
Yes.
We're going to have such good weeks, guys. Everybody's going to have such a good week because we're all going to not procrastinate, and we're going to fill our lives with things that we love. So.
And we can't wait to hear, what you guys come up with. Share with us anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, can't wait to see you. Have a great week.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
oh my word,
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.